on this computer. There we go.
Okay, it's still saying ask for permission. So, yeah.
Hello, Alvin.
I'm not up there. I am for some reason or other. Can you hear me, Lisa?
I can hear you.
Very good. Okay.
So Lisa, I haven't. Would you be able to share me the recording later?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can download it. I post on YouTube. I can send you either that link or the one from Zoom.
Sure. Yeah, either or, just so I can have it on my computer.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen if that's possible.
You cannot.
Okay.
I actually have to share my screen.
Okay.
So I will do that. Yeah, I have it set so that you can't, just because of security issues. But there we go. Just tell me when you want me to advance, and I will do that.
Okay. So I guess first and foremost, I want to thank everybody. Well, first, I want to thank the ACF for even asking me to do this. It's a huge honor, so thank you very much. My name is Chef Chris Galarza, and I'm the founder and culinary sustainability consultant for Forward Dining Solutions. So a little bit about my background. I started cooking when I was 16 years old professionally and found my way to go to culinary school here in Pittsburgh, where I graduated in 2012 with a bachelor's in culinary management. From there, while I was working in school, I was also working at Monterey Bay Fish Grotto, which is the #1 seafood restaurant here in Pittsburgh. And after I graduated, I went down to be an apprentice for Certified Master Chef Rich Rosendale while he was doing the Bocuse d'Or. And it was a huge honor to be down there. I got to work with 7 other culinary Olympians. I got to meet 2 other master chefs, and it advanced my career decades. I feel I grew so much so fast, so I'm incredibly grateful for that place. And I eventually left to come back to Pittsburgh, where I started working again at Monterey Bay Fish Grotto, and 6 months later I took over as the executive chef. From there I went and opened up their new location at Off the Hook in Cranberry, and then started to be the catering chef for Carnegie Mellon University, which is one of the best engineering schools in the nation, if not the country. Sorry, if not the world. And then after I left there, I found myself at Chatham University's Eden Hall campus, where I helped establish one of the nation's first all-electric kitchens at the world's first fully self-sustaining university campus. And since then, I've decided to open up my own company. Serendipitous how it even happened. It's a long story. But if you guys listen to any podcast I've been on or anything like that, I go into it in pretty detail. So without further ado, what we're going to be discussing today is sustainable food service and induction cooking, which I've spent the last 5-6 years of my life studying, learning, teaching. So before we get started, a little bit of ground rules. Feel free to stop me and interrupt me at any time. This is a dialogue. It's just in presentation form. So feel free, if you have a question, if you want me to stop. Okay. All right. So Lisa, can you go ahead? All right, so about Forward Dining Solutions, about my company. We are a culinary sustainability consulting firm dedicated to helping businesses see a path forward into the world of sustainability and electric cooking. What sets us apart from the competition is that we are the only firm with a real world working knowledge of electric kitchen technologies. In other words, any other consulting firm out there has their own culinary consultants. The difference is when they're talking about induction, when they're talking about electric kitchens, it's all in theory. I've actually worked it. I've actually ran it. I've actually taught people how to use it, and that's what sets me apart. I've been a chef who experienced all facets of dining, from 5-star, 5-diamond resorts to small-scale restaurants, and I have experience working with multidisciplinary teams, from engineering, architects, as well as the culinary side. Go ahead. So Lisa, if you could play this video. This is just a quick, to intro this video. It's essentially, what if the world we live in wasn't as electrified as it already is? So if you want to go ahead and start that video. There's no sound. It's all right.
Was there sound?
Yeah, there was sound. It doesn't
Oh,
matter.
okay.
It doesn't really say anything. There
Okay,
will
I
be,
thought somebody
other
said there
videos.
wasn't sound.
There will be other videos in the presentation that do have sound. So, but yeah, so this is, so please continue with the video. So essentially just showcases all the appliances we already use in our world. What if they were, not electric? So yeah, so that's about the video. It's a little campy, if you will, but it's just to highlight the fact that, like, when we talk about electrification, decarbonization, sustainable dining, people always have a pushback when it comes to gas appliances. And this is just a silly way to show that everything else in our kitchen is already electric. When was the last time you see a gas-powered RoboCoupe? I've never seen one. It doesn't exist. We are already moving down that path. There's just a couple of things we need to change. So if you could advance. So real-world health considerations. So what are the concerns with using gas appliances? What are the concerns with using combustion as a fuel source? Well, first and foremost, you need to identify where they come from, if you want to advance. So obviously tobacco, smoke, motor vehicles, anything that burns gas, like heaters, furnaces, fireplace, wood stoves. But the one that we have the ability to change right now, other than water heaters, it's a totally different presentation. The gas stoves and the ovens is what we use day to day, and it's what we're exposed to the most. Can you advance to the next one? So the typical outdoor concentration for carbon monoxide, which is one of the odorless, colorless toxins that come out of, burning fossil fuels, is 0.03 to 2.5 parts per million. The federal standard is 9 parts per million maximum. If it goes beyond that, everyone's inside, everything's shut down until we figure out where there's this leak coming from. But in the kitchen, we're consistently exposed to over 200 parts per million in our space. That is not safe. Some of the symptoms that I know we've all felt is nausea, vomiting, headache, lightheadedness. Could be from heat, could be also, as I stated, from the carbon monoxide. Complications of which are permanent brain damage, cardiac damage, and even death. So other byproducts, carbon dioxide, nitrous dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and other particulates such as soot and smoke all come from these from burning of natural gas. You can see this in real time when you grab your pan and you see all that black underneath it. That's from just burning. That does not exist in induction in an all-electric kitchen. Go ahead. So decarbonization and electrification. So what that essentially means is to take any carbon that we're going to be creating out of our environments, whether it be electrical grids, whether it be our homes, and replacing them with electric appliances. So if you can go ahead. So why electrification? Pretty much a lot of the states in our country is already moving towards a more renewable portfolio, with some states as far as California, Colorado, Hawaii, Virginia, DC, even Puerto Rico. They're all committing themselves to going 100% renewable. Why that's important? I mean, we're seeing right now what's happening in Texas, and you can see Texas is green because they made a commitment in '99 to adopt more renewable sources, but in reality, it was 10,000 megawatts that they were hoping to get by 2025 and they hit in 2015. So Texas is unfortunately dealing with the fact that they are a state that has hit their standard, if you will, done nothing to improve it. And if you go to the next slide, we can talk more about what's happening. So in their power grid right now, it collapsed, obviously, we all know about that. And why that is because they've taken themselves away from the national grids, if you will. So they're no longer a part of the federal oversight or anything like that. And because of that, there was not enough attention to maintenance and not enough attention to upgrading, not enough attention to pushing towards more renewable sources. 80% of their grid comprises of thermal sources, nuclear, gas, coal. And it's important to diversify, like the same way as if you had money and you wanted to invest it, you wouldn't put it all into one stock. You would diversify your investments. And it's the same thing that you should be doing in your kitchen, same thing you should be doing in what they should have been doing in their electric system. If you hit one more time. So Dan Woodfin is the Senior Director of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, and they're the ones that are in charge of, maintaining their grid. And let me move this out of here. And Dan said that the loss of power to the grid caused by the shutdowns of thermal power plants, primarily those relying on natural gas, dwarfed the dent caused by frozen wind turbines by a factor of 5 or 6. In fact, wind power actually exceeded the grid operator's daily forecast throughout the weekend. And what we're seeing now is, these politicians who are caught with their pants down and not really caring about upgrading and just trying to maintain the status quo. And because they tried to maintain the status quo, their state is in deep trouble. I have friends down there, and they're actually expecting their first child, and it was a pretty scary situation for them. And this isn't just to harp on the fact that this, woe is Texas. It's just to highlight the mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The mentality of it's worked for us for all this time. That mentality taken to a larger scale causes damage, and we're seeing that in Texas. We're seeing that with the global climate crisis as well. Lisa. So, that brings us to Chatham University Eden Hall. So that is a ZNE campus, or a zero net energy campus. And Lisa, if you hit the next slide. This is where I lived for the last 5 years. This was my Garden of Eden, if you will. If you see by that blue water tower, we had 30 acres of cultivated farmland. There's a little patch of white in between the trees. That's where we had our 7 apiaries and 2 movable high tunnels, which helped us extend the growing season. Move into the little circular parking lot, if you will. There's a solar panel array that helped create 450 kilowatts of solar energy, as well as the field labs. Just those 2 little buildings. The one on top is actually where we would clean our water. And it started in, you guys can't see my cursor. It started where that little barrel looking thing is, and it kind of looped all the way around. We were able to capture and clean our own water. The building next to it, or right below it, is actually where we raised our own trout. We would tap all the trees on campus and make our own maple syrup. We grew our own mushrooms. We had our own orchard. We anything and everything that we wanted to do, we grew, we did. That large building right behind it with the little tarp over it, that's actually our solar high tunnel. That's where we would grow the bulk of our produce during the winter months. I'd have fresh lettuce all winter long. I'd have Swiss chard, kale, anything I wanted grown there that can handle it would handle it, and it would be a substantial difference in temperature from the outside to the inside. And then that large building is where my kitchen was housed. That's where we did the bulk of the operation. That's where I lived. If you want to go to the next slide. What warmed and kept our campus going, back one, forward one, you nailed it. What kept our campus working as far as the temperature control was our geothermal system. We had 46 geothermal wells on campus, and it worked in conjunction with my kitchen to actually warm the building. We'll go into that later on in the presentation. Can you move on, Lisa? All right, so Eden Hall. When they were looking to build Eden Hall, there was a number of assumptions they had to look into what was the average kitchen. The average cafeteria kitchen ranged from 250 to 400 kilobTUs a year, per square foot a year, and had an EUI of an average of 325. EUI meaning the energy usage index. In an average kitchen, there was no ventilation heat recovery, there was no variable airflow hood system, and there was fossil fuel heating. Can you go to the next slide, please? So when modeling Chatham, we had some initial assumptions where there would be about 1,500 students on campus at any given moment. Gas equipment would be idling throughout the day, constant flow exhaust hoods, standard refrigeration, and to make it greener, they would add heat pump heating and cooling in the air systems, which brought down the EUI to 233. With, if you can see there, the kitchen equipment being the biggest bulk of the usage. Next slide, please. So from there, we played around with some ideas. So what if we did a hybrid kitchen, which is some gas, some electric? You'd see that we added radiant heating and cooling, variable flow exhaust hoods, remote refrigeration loops, induction range griddles and warmers, as well as a heat recovery makeup air unit. That brought down the EUI further to 162. And we figured, how can we take it further? Go ahead, Lisa. So we then broke down every piece of equipment to find what was the energy load. Now that we decided that we're going to go all electric, we need to figure out what was the energy load of each equipment. We found that the pizza oven was a huge draw. So we decided, you know, with ideas to cut this, the pizza oven would be out. So next slide. So there was other strategies that we did for further reduction. Some of these were extreme, but it was just to see what we could do. So the first one was to eliminate hot breakfast and limit the equipment to 11-hour a day use, which brought us down to, if you can click the button real fast, to 142 EUI. The next one was to eliminate the pizza oven and the hot breakfast. Can you click the button again? Which brought us down to 126 EUI. Now the most extreme one was, what if we eliminate pizza, eliminate the hot breakfast, and have an extreme reduction of equipment where we would only use the equipment for 8 hours a day max. And that brought us all the way down to 105.9. So those were the strategies moving forward. So what we ended up doing was a hybrid. We got rid of the pizza oven and we limited the equipment use to 11 hours a day. We would be open from, my staff would show up around 6 and be gone by 7. Or we would close at 7. So if you go ahead to the next slide. So what that did was that brought us down to an estimated EUI of 121 before renewables, and this is also before that they built the north parking lot PV canopy. So if we go to the next slide, what we saw after 1 year of use in 2017 was that in the blue line on the left, they modeled for us to be around 60,000 kilowatt, monthly kilowatt per hour, and we actually exceeded that. Same thing on the right, we actually were creating more energy than they actually expected us to create. And what that led to was an EUI of 51.9 as opposed to the 121 that was predicted. Now, admittedly, we weren't at 1,500 students, but we were still producing about 500 meals weekly without any catering or anything like that. Can you go to the next slide? So this is the overview of the kitchen, which is what, now that we're out of the nerdy stuff that I enjoy, this is what people want to see. So we have in Eden Hall, 12 induction food warming surfaces, 6 half and 6 full, a culinary innovation station, which is where we would hold our cooking classes, 2 4-burner induction ranges, 2 flat top induction units, 2 electric fryers, a triple deck oven with 2 built-in proofers, 2 electric convection ovens, 2 electric steamers, a tilt skillet, and a state-of-the-art hood system with heat recovery. So if you can hit that video. There's no sound coming out of it. So what I'm saying in this video is that the tilt skillet has those induction hobs in there, and that's where we would create the heat from using that that knob right there. So it'd be like a typical like it looks, all this equipment looks like their gas counterpart, and that's the point of it. It's not meant to be confusing, foreign, or anything like that. It's meant to just, what happened? Okay, so that's our triple deck oven. I'll be pulling into the controls. You'll see that we have a top and a bottom heating element. And the center heating element is what we would call the heat shield, which is what we would do to control how much heat is lost from the unit as you're working in there. How many times have you opened up your oven, your convection oven, and all the heat just rushed out? This wouldn't be the case. And in doing so, it saved us on energy because it, wouldn't have to recover as much. And as well, it gave us the option to inject steam, which will help set crusty breads. That's our 6 half burner induction warmers. We opted for the flat, sleek look. And then we're going into the full size. And then right behind that is going to be our fryer, which instead of 70-pound fryers, they were 35-pound fryers. And the way they worked is when you turn them on, it would oscillate between on and off and slowly bring up that temperature. And that would extend the life of the oil as well as be able to filter and all that fun stuff. And then we would donate the rest to a biodiesel company. And then our flat tops, which again look indistinguishable except for the fact that they have a digital readout. So you can set to the exact temperature that you want to cook at. So it gives you unparalleled control. And that metal on top acts like the pan on the element. It makes that induction connection. And then our hood system, which I will go to in depth because it's my favorite piece of equipment. If you want to go on to the next slide. So induction cooking, this is what we're here to talk about. What is induction cooking and how does it work? So Lisa, next slide, please. So what it's not gas, it's not those god-awful coils, and it's not radiant heat. So gas is, we all know what gas is. The coils is what I thought of when I thought of an electric kitchen. And those are the ones that we all dread. Take a half hour to boil a pot of water. It's terrible. And then the radiant heat, although it is we would call the upgraded version of the coil, it's actually more efficient than the gas range. So a gas range at most, you're looking at 50% efficiency. This, you're looking at about 60-70% efficiency for the radiant heat. The problem is that it loses efficiency because it has to convert that electrical energy into heat. But in induction, you don't have to. Induction is a safer and quicker way of cooking. It's a way of cooking using electromagnetic current to heat your vessel, and it's an easy way to meet your sustainability goals as well as save some money. Next slide, please. So how does induction work? So induction works by, first and foremost, you need a ferrous pan. You need a pan that's magnetic. If you want to know if it works, grab a magnet. Cast iron's ideal, but they also make stainless steel that is made specifically to work with induction. Traditionally, stainless steel has other metals like nickel and cobalt embedded into it, which is what makes it non-magnetic. But once you put the pan on there, the induction range generates a high frequency alternating magnetic field that, when makes connection with that pan, creates friction, sending the heat directly to the pan and excites the molecules in the ferrous material. So all that is an easy way of saying, think of a microwave. So in a microwave, you're putting your food in there and you're turning it on. It's sending these tiny little waves into your food, which on a molecular level is creating friction by oscillating the water molecules back and forth at such a high rate of speed it creates heat from the inside out. We're doing the same thing, but we're using electromagnetic current to oscillate the magnetic molecules in the pan while working with the linear structure of the pan to create heat. So if you see the little photo down there, those little red free electrons that they're calling them, if they they are going through the metal, and we know that metal is a great conductor of electricity, a great conductor of heat, which is why we use it to conduct electricity. It's why we use it to cook. It gets hot fast, it cools down fast. So while using this technology, we're heating it up on a molecular level at such a high rate of speed, we're able to effectively boil water in under 2 minutes. And that's how it works. And because we're cooking this way, the sides, the air around it does not get hot because only the pan is getting hot. Nothing else, because the air is not magnetic. The ceramic glass on top is not magnetic. Nothing else is getting hot. And that's why it's safe for use. Next slide. So induction versus gas. What is, side by side, what does it look like? So induction is about 90+% efficient, which means to create 1 kilobtu of energy, of heat energy, we need 1.1 kilowatts of energy, as opposed to gas, which at its absolute best, is 50% efficient, which to make 1 kilobtu of heat energy, you need 2 kilowatts of energy. So what this means is, you may say, well, gas is actually cheaper to using than electric, but imagine you're at your restaurant, you have this giant 60,000 BTU Vulcan range, and you turn it on, and you're like, this is so much power, this is amazing. Well, you're only using 30,000 of those BTUs. The rest is going off into your kitchen, it's going off into your system. Now your building's working much harder to replenish that heat, your kitchen's uncomfortable, it's just not a good environment. With induction, you're able to process 70.9 pounds of food per hour, as opposed to, at best, in gas, 38.6 pounds of food per hour. It's easier to clean, which means now your cooks are spending more time cooking and less time cleaning, because all you need is hot soapy water. As opposed to the gas, you have to take everything apart, scrub it down with some degreaser, change the foil. That doesn't exist on an induction range. Because of that, it's safer to use. There's no accidental burning because only the metal making contact with the surface is getting hot. So there's no, oh, I grabbed the handle, burned my hand. There's no, I forgot my towel, not too close to the burner, it caught on fire. None of that happens, which is why it's much safer to use. Next slide. So pros and cons. Well, the pros are that induction is very highly efficient, from 80 to 93% efficient, as opposed to gas, which is 35 to 50% efficient. So like I said, at best, you're getting half your money's worth while you're cooking. It heats up really fast. It gives you precise temperature adjustments, which is unparalleled control. No idling equipment, no combustion, which means no carbon in your kitchen. Dramatic improvement to thermal comfort. And you extend the pots and pans, like the life of your pots and pans. So there's no warping, there's no black soot being built up on it, none of that. So you now aren't spending as much money to replace your pots and pans as often as you are with induction. Cons, the initial cost. It always scares people. People are always looking at the ticket price and not seeing the long-term implications. And we'll go into that as well. And compatible cookware, people, if you walk into your kitchen, you have those aluminum pots and pans that even on gas we all hate. You're going to have to replace your cookware. It's just inevitable. And also the electrical capacity, like the retrofit hurdle is a big thing for most people. If you can't support the electrical loads, you're going to have to upgrade your panels, and that can be costly. But in most states, including Pennsylvania, there are programs in place to help offset those costs and give you a tax credit as well. So, you should look into some of this stuff. Next slide. So this is another comparison between, gas and electric appliances. You see each section being talked about at the low end and the high end. As you can see, for the most part, electric blows it out of the water. It's not even close. Next slide. In the kitchen, we also know things to be idling all the time, like grills, like, flat tops, ovens, things like that. And this was actually taken at Stanford University. A good friend of mine, Steve Gross, took it, and he asked me about it. Like, is it common practice to have things just on even though no one's using it? And I'm like, yeah, that's, how are you going to keep things hot if you don't? But that's the reality of the situation, is that there is so much waste that we don't even think about because it's just commonplace for us. So next slide. So what is life like in an electric kitchen? So imagine a world where you walk in, my staff walked in at 6 a.m. and, they didn't have to turn anything on except for what equipment they were going to be using. Hood system and the lights turned on by itself. The induction, we would turn on the ovens, we would turn on the fryer and flat top. That's it. For the most part, it was super easy to walk in, and temperature was super comfortable. Everyone got along because no one was agitated, no one was overly hot. Because of that, our students had great experiences because everyone was so mellow, so relaxed. They weren't uncomfortably hot. It wasn't uncommon for them to be hanging out by the kitchen as they were eating and just having a good time. You guys all know there's been kitchens that you've walked into with the with the chef's table. A lot of times people are having a hard time selling those tables because it's uncomfortably hot for an extended period of time for the guests. If you have an all-electric kitchen space, that is not the case. So is there any way to get audio on this? Because if not, I'll just talk through it. Yep, slide back. Okay, so we go into these, what I call myth busting section. So the first myth is that you can't saute on induction. The reason for being, as you can't hear me say, is that there is a misconception that chefs love to warm up their pans on their gas range, which is true. They do, but that's because it's so inefficient. It doesn't get the pans hot fast enough. So they preheat their pans. With induction, that's not necessary. The other myth is that you can't saute because once you pull it off the element, where's the heat coming from? Which is true if you pull it off flame as well. Like, where's the heat coming from? The fact of the matter is, the heat energy is retained in the pan. You're able to saute it, and it's not like you're putting it on ice after. So what I'm showing here is that I just grabbed the pan with nothing in it, just a little bit of oil. It's about, what was it, 63, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. I tossed the peppers in, cold turkey, turned it on, and normally at this point you would start hearing a sizzle. I'd start throwing it around. It's sauteing. You see smoke. So the reality is that you don't need to preheat your pans. It gets hot fast. So Lisa, next slide. The next is induction cooking exaggerates its speed. It doesn't cook as fast if you want to start playing that video. So people always say, well, I mean, induction cooking, I'm sure it's faster, but it's not really worth it. As we talked about in previous slides, we can cook about twice as much food on induction because things are getting hot faster, things are cooking faster, and things are going in the oven faster. It's just, and we're not spending as much time cleaning. So what happened here, I added some water, put it on the stove. There's no salt, which, as we all know, can add to the speed of boiling water. If you ever want to test that at home, take your pot of water right before you start seeing it simmer, add some salt and see how fast it comes up to a boil. Or have two pots side by side, some with salt, some without, and then test it. So what you're able to see is just starting to see those little bubbles forming. The video itself is only about 1.5 minutes long. So from filling up or from adding water into the pan to heating it up only takes about 1.5 minutes. Try doing that on your gas stove. It's going to take twice as long. if at best. They actually did a study on that. Richard Young did. If you guys want to look that up, it's pretty remarkable how fast induction works. You start seeing the bubbles, start seeing wisps of steam, and just like that, we got hot water. So next slide, please. So induction is dangerous for pacemakers and metal implants. This one I actually got, and I thought it was like it was kind of disingenuous as far as I'm concerned, that somebody would use someone else's health conditions to make an excuse why they shouldn't upgrade their systems. The fact of the matter is the electromagnetic field generated from induction is very low, about 2 to 3 inches max, which if it's really that low and the concern is there for your pacemaker, then that means that your chef is laying on the equipment, which on gas or electric is not a good idea. That's an entirely different conversation you need to be having. Do not have your staff lay on the equipment. Okay, first and foremost. Also, there was a study published that was funded by the American Heart Association, and they absolutely approve the use of induction. And as a matter of fact, the American Heart Association lists cell phones as something you shouldn't have near your chest, but induction is nowhere near that list. It's so much safer. Next slide. Now, glass surfaces will shatter and warp. That's always a concern. People think, I have a glass top, it's going to break. The fact of the matter is that it's not tempered glass, okay? It's tempered ceramic glass. Tempered ceramic glass is much stronger and will not warp, will not shatter, unless you're going to hit it with a sledgehammer or put an incredibly hot item on the surface that you've had an ice block on it. That temperature shock might crack it, but for the most part, I've never had that happen. Tempered ceramic glass at about 600 degrees Fahrenheit for a prolonged period of time will eventually shatter. Tempered ceramic glass, which is what induction units use, actually can exceed temperatures of 1,470 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't know of any oven on earth that can get that hot. At least none that chefs use. And that surface is an actual real life 5-year-old picture. That's after 5 years of use for weddings, cooking for dignitaries, cooking for students, day in and day out for 5 straight years. That's what the surface actually looked like. You can see the reflection of the wall, the lights, the Ansel system. Not a scratch on it. So next. Here's the truth about induction, okay? Induction gives more power and control to the chefs. It's safer to use. It's easier to clean. It saves you money. It saves you energy. It saves you carbon. Next slide. Flat tops. They're indistinguishable from its gas counterpart. It's a knob with a flat metal surface. The difference is you have those digital readouts that you can set to the exact temperature you want. So you can be poaching eggs in a pot on one side, on the other side you're cooking eggs over easy on the same flat top, and you can precisely control that. There is because it's induction, extremely quick warm-up time and recovery time is much faster than it is on gas as well. It's easier to clean. Again, this is the common thread. It's going to save you money, save you energy, and save you CO2. Induction warmers, unparalleled control. Again, they have the digital readout. There's a sleek guest-facing design that we've chosen. There's no steam table, so there's no chance of being burned from steam. It's easy to clean again, and again, it's going to save you lots of money. And if you don't like flat induction warmers, at least you can go to the next slide. Volrath makes a well warmer that actually, if you see those legs on the little black surface there on the right, you can flip those up or keep them down. So you can customize each well to have a 2 or a 4-inch pan. So it further gives you more customizable options. That wouldn't be the case if you had water and steam. Next. Now, electric doesn't always mean induction. So our triple deck oven was were the heating elements. And that's so we can sustain and heat up the hearth inside, the stone inside. But we were still able to have much more control than when its gas counterpart had the heat shield, which allowed for faster heat recovery, and the steam injection, which was invaluable. And because of that, we saved a ton of money, energy, and CO2. Now, this is my favorite part. All that stuff was cool. All that stuff, would be every chef's dream. The hood systems are what I really fell in love with. So the hood systems are an advanced VAV control, which means it's a variable airs, which means it can adjust its speed as you're using it. There's remote monitoring and adjusting. So if there's an issue, say, when we first started, actually, they just set the sensors within to whatever they thought was a good idea. So like someone put 90 degrees for the internal ductwork, and it just wasn't coming on because the internal ductwork wasn't reading 90 degrees. So we were able to call the company. They immediately fixed it, started working in real time. Because of that, it works. It also works with our geothermal systems, which allows for the heat recovery. And I will segue that to the next slide and explain how that works. So those sensors that you're seeing, those are the sensors that are scanning the cooktop. And when you get a pan on there, you start getting it hot, it senses the pans are getting hot. And in conjunction with those little pinholes around the side that are coming to become standard in most hood systems, it creates a positive and negative pressure to more effectively and efficiently suck the heat, the steam, the grease out of the air. And it turns on and off as it's needed. So when my cooks are leaving, they don't turn off the equipment. It just shuts off on its own. When it notices it's not in use, it's not going to be in use. And it works with the geothermal system by capturing the heat, and instead of expelling it out into the atmosphere, it actually heats. It actually warms up the geothermal fluid, which is a propylene glycol, and which is the same thing going into the geothermal wells. So the geothermal wells come up 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it mixes with our propylene glycol that would bring up the temperature to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which made it for a very comfortable experience. And the way that we use that to heat the building was there wasn't any forced air system, so there wasn't any air conditioning. All year round, we were warming our systems. We were warming our building because the geothermal liquid comes up from the wells at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when we bring it up to 70, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, we send it through these micro tubings on the floor, which radiate out. And that's how we were able to maintain the temperature in the building. So if you go to the next slide, we were also able to track and efficiently, we were able to track our efficiency in real time. So this particular day, we were running at 94% efficiency. So we were only using, of the energy that we could be using if it was on at full speed, we were using 6% of the energy. So and also if you look at the other tabs, which I don't have pictures of, you can identify errors. You can track each individual each individual hood and find out which one is down, which one's working, which one's not, how much each hood is pushing in CFMs, efficiency, all that stuff. So next slide. And the result is this. So the gray line that you see is a traditional hood system. So if you walked into that restaurant and you were to be the first cook at 6 a.m., turn on the hood system, it'd be running at 6,000 plus CFMs until about 7:30 whenever we shut down, right? It'd be nonstop until you shut it off. And there's times that people forget it on. That's money out of your pocket. We, at worst, ran a 40% efficiency. At our busiest, at our worst, ran a 40% efficiency. For the most part, we stayed around a 50% or lower efficiency. And our line is that blue line. You see it jump up because it's responding to how we're cooking, how busy we are, how much food we're producing. That's how we save money. So to put into perspective, talk about the big ticket prices. That hood system cost us $300,000 to put in. A hood system of that size at a regular restaurant without the variable control or the heat recovery and all that stuff costs about $100,000. The difference in that particular item is I'm bringing it up because it's the big.
Some of the active kitchens that a lot of us are using right now, where we're still using the carbon footprint stuff, a lot of cleaning goes involved into that. How does the cleaning differences
Big difference.
work out?
Yeah, so we actually saw a considerable cost reduction in how much chemicals we were buying. We weren't buying as much degreaser or anything like that. There's no more use of grill bricks. That flat top you saw, clean with hot water and usually a low duty, or if it's really bad, a medium duty scrub brush. We didn't want to damage the finish that was on top, so we wanted to keep it as shiny as possible. So that all that stuff that you normally need, degreaser and the grill brick and elbow grease, hot soapy water, everything comes off. You wipe it down, you're done. So we were able to see that because everything was so quick and easy to clean, we needed less time for the staff to clean. So we actually saved on labor. We were able to cut down on some of that cost. Hold on, battery's getting low. We were able to cut down on some costs and actually improve production because we had so much more time.
I am back if we need to return back to the PowerPoint. I apologize. My
Well,
internet
actually, the
kicked
next
me
slide
off.
was the questions. So
I saw that.
So just jump back on that. Is there any other questions?
I have a question for you, Chris.
Yes.
I want to thank all of you guys for having me. I'm over in California, and Chris and I have been talking for the last week. I appreciate you letting me hang out.
Thank you for coming.
And we can talk about this a little more tomorrow. But can this equipment be next to a gas oven, for example? So if I want to replace my 36-inch flat top that's sitting next to a gas oven, is that possible, or does the heat from the gas oven affect the induction?
No, not at all. Especially with say the induction flat top, like that radiates because it's that's one of the few pieces of equipment that stays on. So you're able and when we initially were when we were initially modeling Chatham, we actually modeled a hybrid kitchen utilizing gas and electric equipment. So you absolutely can, and that's a beautiful stuff. That's a beautiful thing about this. That the equipment is built to be identical in its kitchen footprint. So you can easily swap them out and not have to worry about, well, now this is going to be too small, it's not going to fit or whatever. It's made to easily replace that.
Chris, with when you guys started moving over towards this and started working up things, what was your concerns about backup power? I mean, here in Pittsburgh, the club that I work at loses power at least 2 or 3 times a year, and we swap over to backup generators.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a big effect in that when, like how does this technology combat situations like that? Or do you have to make a significant change to your infrastructure to do that?
So we actually had 2 cogen generators in the back of our building, which ran off of natural gas as well, green natural gas, whatever that means. To be honest with you, I wasn't part of that, but they do run, and that was just in case something went down. We can keep the fish alive and keep the kitchen running. So there was a backup generator using natural gas just in case we lost power, which up at the farm we would lose power sometimes, no doubt about it. But the truth of the matter is, realistically, we're not supposed to be cooking if there's no power anyway. So when we do, we kind of like break the law, if you will. But when the power went out, yeah, that is the downside. That power goes out, you can't cook. But it would be the same way if we lost water, and we can't open legally. We can't open if there's no power and there's no water.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Chris, does you mentioned that you had that the hood system. Does it always have to have a hood system? I mean, I know you use induction sometimes at different places, and you don't have to have a hood system, but
Well, in at least in Allegheny County, the health department requires there to be a hood system that covers the entire landscape of the usable kitchen equipment. So anything you're cooking off of has to be underneath the hood system. So we couldn't get away with that. But at like the home level,
Okay.
actually Elica makes a really nice induction stove that has the I guess you can call it the hood system, built directly into the center of it. So as you're cooking, the steam is just going right down to the center and sucking out, as opposed to having the the vents up top.
Got it.
And actually, that's something that we've been discussing as far as the we just completed work on a decarbonization guide that's going to be going live hopefully in April, and it's going out for peer review next week. So hopefully that comes back all good. So John says, John Defendifer says, I have heard of induction equipment used portably for catering uses. No hood. Do you have an experience with that? Yeah. So there is plug-in induction hobs. Those are actually an exception to the rule because it's not a permanent use equipment. So yeah, so you're perfectly fine if you use that, because you're, for the most part, plugging it in, you're making something real fast and you're taking it off, and you have no control when you're doing offsite caterings is what the locations have. So you just got to make do, which is why a lot of times, like this, they also don't require you to have a hood system above your omelet station, you know. So it's just stationary kitchen equipment needs to have a hood system over it. But thank you for your question. Any other questions before we move on? Because now we go back into science and nerd data.
One last question I got, Chris. Is there? I mean, I know this is pretty broad. I mean, every kitchen's a different size and everything like that. Is there like a generalized idea of how much it costs to convert like basic lines depending on size and whatnot, and like where we would find that information to get estimates if it was something we were interested in looking into doing?
So that is outside my wheelhouse. I will say that it is dependent on where you're at, because for instance, in Washington, they don't allow for heat recovery. So the hood system that I have probably wouldn't work in Washington. So it all depends on where you're at and what costs are. Something that costs, you know, whatever it costs in California, it's obviously probably going to be more expensive here. So, and also depends on if you're getting any custom work done. So that I would defer to an engineer who would have more experience in modeling energy usage, modeling how much the retrofit cost would be for you, whether you have to upgrade your panel or not, and figure all that stuff out on your local level.
What's the name of the company who makes the home induction stove?
Well, there's a lot of them, Bosch, a lot of them, but the one that I was referring to was, it's called Elica, E-L-I-C-A, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All right, so let's discuss thermal comfort in the commercial kitchen. So when you change from gas to electric, there's going to be a noticeable difference in the thermal comfort. So if you go to the next slide, we'll discuss when you're trying to quantify thermal comfort, how do you figure that out? So they've broken it down to 3 categories. The stuff that you can't control, like the humidity and the air velocity outside. The stuff that you can control as an operative, which is the air temperature of your building, the radiant temperature of your building, and the stuff that you as the individual can control, which is your clothing, your activity level. All that plays into thermal comfort. So if you see below, if the air is the exact same and you're doing activity and you're not doing activity, your body temperatures are going to be different. So Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide. So ASHRAE actually conducted a study of about 100 kitchens across the United States for 1 week. And they tested multiple climate zones, all the climate zones, as well as comparisons from summer and winter. So, and they broke it down to 3 categories, from cooking to preparation and dishwashing. They identified the little blue bar as the ideal range for thermal comfort. And if you look inside, you're going to see a lot of squares and triangles, which is how they broke it down. Circle is cooking, square is preparation, triangle is dishwashing. in that thermal comfort where you're most comfortable, preparation and dishwashing, people were comfortable and not a big deal. But as you see, the humidity level rises, the temperature rises as you start to cook. There's one kitchen that's about 40% humidity with well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in your kitchen. That's not good for you. It's just not good for you. When you switch to an induction or an all-electric kitchen, that's completely different. Lisa, can we go to the next slide? So this is another breakdown of the data, and you see that red is summer, blue is winter, and the only time that the staff were comfortable was during the winter. It didn't matter what the humidity was. It was during winter they're comfortable, which tells us that for half of the year they're uncomfortable, they're hot, which what happens when you're uncomfortable? You get agitated, people don't get along, and as we all know, chefs are pretty full of themselves already. So that being said, people are finding themselves for half of the year enjoying themselves, half of the year not enjoying themselves. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you real data of my kitchen. So this was taken September 9th to September 16th of 2019. And as you can see, my kitchen never even hit 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And before you think that it was cold outside, maybe that's why, we were registering temperatures of 85 degrees Fahrenheit plus. So it was hot outside, but we never hit above 74 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, we were in between 70 and 72 primarily. And that's during production, that's during the day. For a full week, we never really dipped down unless when it's way down is when we actually were gone for the day. So that is real data proving that we are much more comfortable in an environment when there's no combustion being had. Next slide, please. So we're coming towards the end. So let's talk about some new tech that's coming out. So Rationale, which as far as I'm concerned is a Cadillac of all cooking equipment, has a Vario cooking center, which is able to sear, fry, boil, hot hold, pressure cook, all sorts of different stuff. And they use the latest induction technology that they've created, which is like these little tiles of induction. And what that means for the industry is that if, say, my flat top, one element would go down, then it would take time for us to fix it, right? The beauty of this technology is that, say one of those tiles go out, the unit still works because they're all independent of each other, and then they can just come out and swap it out, no problem. And that's, honestly, that's game changing right there. And I don't have a picture of it, but there's also an even bigger one, giant tilt skillet, that can actually fill up. You can put the baskets in, fill it full of water, add, say, 50 pounds of pasta. It would bring it down, agitate it, and cook it for whatever time that you set it to. Bring it up, drain the water, and then shock your pasta for you. Which means that using this new tech that they have, your cooking cleaner, your kitchen's now noticeably cooler because of it. You are now taking the human element out of it. So now your cooks don't have to worry about blanching pasta. It's doing it for you. And it's much, much safer in the process. No more having to tilt down and have water spill out. It's just draining it for you. And that can also be done as a fryer, all sorts of different things. That is a revolutionary piece of equipment that they were actually, Brian, they actually brought that out and told us about last February, I believe it was, and right before all this stuff hit. And that was the last meeting that I actually went to. And then after that, the Electrolux Skyline combi ovens, which their combi ovens can be a blast chiller or a combi oven, and their units can actually talk to each other. You can see data in real time on your phone, and there's a 5% reduction in operating costs just from switching that equipment. So switching from gas to electric, and it does so much more. You're saving right there as well. Now, the big thing on the West Coast is wok cooking. You can't get wok hay because it's only the bottom of the surface that's touching, and which was a valid concern. These companies were saying like, hey, we can sell you this equipment, and they were like, absolutely not. We cook. There's a lot of Asian cooks out there, Asian chefs, and they're like, we need the wok hay. That's how we're trained. So these companies said, okay, we wanted this market. This is what you're telling me is a problem. So Lisa, if you go to the next slide, in 2019, they unveiled their induction walks. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. And if you don't like the big bulky look, they actually came out with a nice sleek look with a divot so you can add your walk pan. So it solves the problem. The beauty of this technology, that it's so new in America, is that they want into this market. It's an untapped market for them. So if you say, I want this, you don't have it, guess what? They're gonna make it. And I know that for a fact because I'm the so my first contract when I started my company was with Microsoft. And we got to a point where everything was starting to move forward. And then their chefs were like, hey, hold on. We have a lot of Asian people here in our campus, and we do a lot of Asian cooking. We do a lot of wok cooking. We need to address that before we can move forward. So here comes Jade Range, and they said, no problem, we can build it for you. They built it, they tested it, the chefs went in there and played with it, completely sold. They were 100% on board because they realized, like, hey, this is insane. Like, we want something, they'll make it. And Jade Range is known for that. So if you go to the next slide, we can talk about who's doing it right. So in North America, you have Garland, you have Electrolux, Bolrath, Cooktech, and Jade Range. And the European manufacturers at MKN and Multini are also, they're killing it right now. Garland and Electrolux actually have their own suites that they can just come and install into your kitchen as is, that are ready to go. And that's the wonderful world of sustainable cooking, wonderful world of induction cooking. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that I'm done finally. So we can have discussion, talks. If you guys have questions, I know we went through a lot of information. I tried to just jam pack everything I know into like 1 hour, which was like impossible. I just kept talking at you guys. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask.
So Chris, if we were interested in starting this change, where's the first place that we would go?
First place you'd go is to talk to your owners. Make sure that they're able to, that they want to do this. Normally the chefs are the biggest hurdle. Normally it's the owners that want to do this, but the chefs are the ones that say, no, we don't want to do this. So if you're interested and the owners are interested, I would talk to an engineering company first, an engineering and architectural company. Those are the two people that you need to talk to. They will start to talk about costs. They will start to talk about energy modeling. They will start to talk about the build out, the design, the plan, all that stuff. And then you would bring in someone like myself, the chef consultant, who would help, who understands what it's like to be a chef in a kitchen and can help build out the kitchen to address any of your concerns. So I would be the one that would, calm any chef's nerves on how induction works, why it's amazing. And I would also be the one to help facilitate between the engineering and the architectural firms who really have no idea like why we like things the way we do. So, you can say, hey, I want more, more cooler space. I want more of this. They're gonna be like, well, we're going to keep it smaller because we can make your kitchen so much bigger. That's where I walk in and say, this isn't ideal. And I help them and you guys come to a place where you're both happy. And then I also stay on to train everybody. I usually stay, say, 2 days minimum. 3 days is ideal, where I would train all the managers, all the chefs on how to use the equipment. We'll, do cooking demos, all that stuff. I'll have everyone cook as well so they understand. Then I'll have, on the second day, I'll be there to help facilitate you guys training of the staff. And on the third day, I'll be there to watch everything go in full production and be there to help address any concerns, to help stop any bad habits before they start to form. Thank you for your question. Any other questions out there?
Hi, do you do tours at Eden Hall?
When I worked there, yes. I left there in November to pursue what I'm doing right now full time, but because of COVID, the campus is still off limits to all
Understood.
outside guests. But at some point when things open up, yeah, it's open to the public. I'd be happy to walk you guys through everything.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions out there? Well, I hope you guys learned a lot about induction cooking. I hope you guys learned a lot about what it takes or how amazing an electric kitchen actually is. And I hope you guys realize that the way we've been doing things for the entirety of our profession's lives is nonsense, to be honest with you. There's a much better way out there. There's a way that we can be comfortable in what we're doing and enjoy ourselves. And when we are comfortable, when we're enjoying ourselves, when everyone's having a good time, that's where we shine. That's where people can really create. That's when people create better, when they're in a better headspace. And I know when I'm uncomfortable, I'm agitated, you know. How many chefs have you seen get mad and throw things around? I wonder if that would happen if they were cooler. Because I can tell you personally, I used to be one of those hot-headed chefs, and I'm much more relaxed now. Ever since I started, you know, living the green life, if you will.
I have a question.
Yes,
When
sir.
were you at the Greenbrier?
I was there in 2012 and 2013, and you, sir, I believe, were there doing a chef dinner with Rosendale,
Yeah.
where the last 5 executive chefs of the Greenbrier were doing a dinner, and I distinctly remember you messing with me as I was cutting down some tenderloins. But I do remember your dish. It was absolutely delicious. It was the lobster mousse stuffed, I believe it was sole, with a champagne cream sauce with, I think it was a bunch of different colors of roe. It was absolutely delicious, absolutely gorgeous. And I still tell stories about you.
Well, I was there from 86 to 91, and then afterwards I came back every year for at least once.
It's amazing. Yeah. I can't tell you how happy I was to be there. I went there to fulfill my dream of working for a master chef, of working for, you know, at the highest echelons of dining. And I was there for a short time. I eventually had to leave. I had some personal problems I had to come take care of. You know, my girlfriend, now fiance, wasn't doing well, and I wanted to be here to support her. So I came back. But in the short time that I was there, I got to work with you, with Rosendale, with Peter Timmons.
Peter Timms, yeah.
Yeah, rest his soul. I got to Drew Garms and all these people that like I've just were like enamored with. And then because Rosendale was in the Bocuse, I got to work with and meet Thomas Keller, Daniel Bluth, Gabriel Cruther, Gavin Case, and Grant Akich, which is like a god to me. He's who I model my my ideas of cooking. Ever since I was in culinary school, I always was an outlier. I was always the weirdo, if you will, because I had these ideas about food. And to this day, people still make fun of me because I kept asking the question why. And to me, that's the most important question. Why are things the way they are? Why do desserts have to be sweet? Why do we do things the way that we do? And so I started taking that and applying that into my cuisine. And it led to me developing savory cotton candies, which I couldn't develop on my own. When I was down at the Greenbrier, the sous chef down there, I'm blanking on his name, of the NDR, Chef Halliday, he and I worked together. I told him what I wanted to do, and we developed 2 different techniques on utilizing or creating cotton candy. One as a liquid base, and the other, you know, as like from fats. So we developed a saffron cotton candy, and then we made some chicharrones, and we made essentially a paella in a bite. And my very first month there, I got something on the MDR amuse-bouche menu, and that was a huge accomplishment because there was seniors there that like I still haven't gotten something on the menu. But that's just like kind of who I've always been in the kitchen, which is someone who is, I don't know nothing from nobody. I just want to try. I want to experiment, and I've always approached food as like I've never seen it before, which is actually what Jose Andreas said when he was doing, I believe it was a TED talk or maybe talking at Harvard, and he was saying, imagine an alien came down from the sky, never seen anything about our planet, no idea, and they asked you to teach them how to cook. Well, you have to start with the basics, and you have to say,
Yeah.
well, this is water, it's odorless, it's flavorless, it can be a gas, it can be a liquid, it can be a solid, it can be anything you want it to be. And you have to look at everything that way. Like you've never seen it before and you come up with some crazy things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually working with a student at Pitt on how to outfit an ISI canister to a helium tank, because I was going to create a foam that was made out of helium. So what was going to happen, the idea behind it was that we were going to create a freestanding floating dessert where we would inject helium into this foam and then have a cotton candy just sit right on top. And it would be, the buoyancy would essentially cancel itself out and it would just sit there. It'd be just buoyant enough to hold itself up. The cotton candy would be just heavy enough to hold it down without going through. And we would have a dessert that required no plate, no utensils, and it would be revolutionary. And then Grant Acker beat me to it with that dumb balloon of his.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you. But yeah, that's how I feel that I'm incredibly fortunate to be where I am. I'm only 31 years old, and I'm the country's only expert in commercial electric cooking. No one else is doing what I'm doing, and I find myself fortunate to be surrounded by good people. Jill Cummer has been hugely instrumental in helping me get to where I am. I'm working with Gerald Ford, certified master chef. He was the captain of the U.S. national team last year. He's been helping me, focus myself more and get myself on board. I've been, the people that I've been working with in the engineering, in the architectural firm, they've been super helpful as well. We've been building this, and all not because, I'm here to make all the money in the world. That's never my goal. It would be nice, but my goal is I see that there is this gap of knowledge between the chefs in America and the chefs in Australia and Asia and Europe. They're already on board with this technology. This technology has been there. This isn't new. It's been there for like 20 years. We are just, we're probably almost.
Well, I had a little table cooker,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And 30 years ago, you had a little table induction unit when I was 1 year old. You see what I'm saying? Like, and as Americans, we're consistently ones to look back about everything instead of looking forward. We're always trying to keep things the way they were. And because we try to keep things the way we were falling behind. And at some point, I sit on the advisory board at Pittsburgh Technical College, and I talk to these kids, and they're saying, I want to go, work for a Michelin-starred chef over across the seas. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, what's going to happen when you get to this restaurant and they go, okay, well, here's everything you need, study, get it ready, come in. Because I know when I went down to the Greenbrier, they give you 1 day to learn everything, and then you're left alone. So if they have to show me how to even turn on the equipment, they're going to be like, no, thanks, we'll find somebody else. And my fear is that at some point, we will cease to be the gold standard, if you will, of chefs, and we will become obsolete. Like if we don't know how to even use the equipment they're using, we're not worth it. And I want to nudge us closer to our European counterparts and catch us up, because at some point it's not going to be good for us.
I did once with that little tabletop what I had. We did a fundraiser for 300 people. I decided to do scallops. Now, if you put scallops, sooner or later your skillet's gonna get cold, right? And then they start boiling, not with the induction, It just keeps going.
The recovery is insane. Yeah. And that's why we're able to process food significantly faster.
Yeah.
More food than gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm unemployed now, so I don't use it anymore.
Yeah, well, I was unemployed and then I started this company, so it is what it is.
Well,
No,
thank you very much for your presentation.
Oh, thank
That's
you very
great.
much for being here. It's a huge honor to be talking to you again. I never thought I'd see you again, so it's awesome to get to see you again.
Yeah.
I'd love to exchange information. Feel free. If you, I doubt you have my email, but if you email, or matter of fact, here's my email for anyone who wants it.
I need something to write. Hold on.
So, and also I do want to say, I'm not sure he's on here, but Chef Raymond Pitts has been a huge advocate for me as well. Jill and Raymond have been the best cheerleaders I could ever have. Jill keeps yelling at me to start things. I'm like, okay, I'll start it. And Raymond was the one that, you know, he's the one that hooked me up with, you know, with Chef Ford. We're actually meeting on Wednesday again. And he's developing me into, I'm hoping that we can really change the landscape of the American culinary world. There's so much more potential here. So my email and phone number on that slide, and I just typed in my email. So there's my phone number as well. Feel free to call, text me at any time. I'm always here to help.
Can you show that again, please?
Sure, it should be on the screen. And it's also in the chat box.
In the chat box. Now we have to find the chat box.
Down on the bottom center, Chef.
Yeah, you take. Yep.
Bottom center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
it should
black
say
bar on the bottom.
participants, chat, square, share screen, record.
Yeah.
That
You
chat,
can-
if you pull that chat up, it'll have it in there.
Chat. Please. Well, I get I get in contact with the Pittsburgh people.
Yes. Yes, Chef, we
Okay.
can have that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone being here. This has been a dream. I feel like I just keep meeting good people, and I just want to give back as much as I can. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jill. I know that you're here. I can see you on the screen. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody here. You guys make this young guy very, very happy today.
Well, thank you, Chef. On behalf of the Pittsburgh chapter, we loved your presentation, and obviously it's a popular presentation because a lot of people joined in on this meeting to make sure and to check it out and see what this is all about. So thank you so much for doing that. And I know Thomas Ford right now is I think he's having a meeting right now with the Cleveland chapter and Columbus chapters. But we also will have some nice meetings coming up. We have scheduled, we are in talks with John Folse. And speaking of Rationale, we are in talks with Rationale, and hopefully we'll have a great Rationale meeting coming up here in the not so distant future.
That's awesome.
So anybody else have any other questions for Chef or for chapter news or chapter, anything on the chapter? Okay.
This meeting is eligible for continuing education credits, correct?
Correct. Yes,
So,
it is.
I have certificates made up for everybody, and I thought I turned back on my camera. I should be sending out in the next couple of days, probably not tomorrow, but in the next couple of days, you should be receiving them. If you don't get one, just email the ACF Pittsburgh email. It's acfpittsburgh@gmail.com, and I will fix the error. But I should have them for everybody. If you don't have it by Saturday, send me an email and just nudge me to make sure that you didn't get lost in the shuffle.
And Lisa, you have Chef Hartman's information.
I do.
If you could send me a that right now, I'll send Chris's information.
Well,
to
I can
you.
just send it to him directly.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I would appreciate that very much.
I was going to send it with your certificate, so I'll send it
Excellent.
now instead so I don't forget.
Thank
I
you
also
so
want to
much.
say, if anyone knows how to get in contact with the people of the CIA, I want them to teach this as a course, because they're going to be the #1 culinary school in the nation. They need to be teaching about progressive technology like this. So, someone get on board on that. That's your homework for today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, it's Rick Panzera.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
All right, doing well. My daughter and her husband's face are up there. I don't know why,
I saw
but they
it.
are. Now you know what my daughter looks like. But anyway, this was a fantastic presentation. I've been waiting for you to do this, and I'm really glad you came through on this. It was you brought up a lot more than I could have expected it was going to be. So
that's awesome. Thank
on
you.
this. You did a fantastic job.
That's very nice.
Yeah. So as far as the CIA goes, I agree with you. Yeah, they do need to move ahead on that. And considering Tim Ryan is a Pittsburgh guy, and he's the president, I mean, he's probably not the one who you would contact from there, but I'm certainly sure somewhere along the line that there can be some ties in there to get it started.
I think
don't
that,
see
yeah, I
any
think we
reason
should
why
do
not.
that. And if not me, someone should be doing that. But I also want to say thank you for everything. You've been hugely helpful as well. Ever since you and Jill brought Raymond up, you're the one that got me back into the ACF after I was I don't know, there's not much there I want to do. And actually, this isn't really set in stone yet, but I submitted myself to speak at the ACF National Convention as well. So
Good.
if it works out, I'll be taking this presentation down to Florida.
Good.
And showing the world all about this.
It's just what you need to do. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. This has been a dream. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Chris, I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank
Take care,
you.
Chefs.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you all.
Thank you, Chef. I'll send you the link to the Zoom video as soon as I get it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Stay safe, everybody.
Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye,
Bye.
Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank
Chef.
you.
Bye-bye, everybody.